My dad, which was my stepdad, Ray Hammond, had passed a year and a half before that. Seeing your mom cry in the middle of the night, wondering, how, things are going to happen.
When Fred Hammond finally opened up about painful truths he had kept buried for years, few expected his words to shake the gospel world so deeply. Behind the celebrated music, powerful worship, and inspiring ministry was a man carrying private struggles, difficult choices, and heartfelt regrets. As his confessions came to light, they revealed a far more personal story than anyone imagined. But what exactly did Fred reveal? And why did it leave so many stunned? The hidden family secret. Only a few months before his mother, Mildred, passed away, Fred Hammond experienced a conversation that forever reshaped the way he understood his own life. It was not a casual family memory or a long-forgotten story from childhood. Instead, it was a deeply emotional confession that his mother had carried in silence for decades. With tears streaming down her face and obvious regret in her voice, she revealed a secret she had never found the courage to tell him. According to her, Fred had never been expected to survive before he was even born. She explained that years earlier, while she was still married to another man, she became pregnant with Fred after an extramarital relationship. Terrified by the situation and uncertain about what the future would hold, she made a heartbreaking decision that would haunt her for the rest of her life. She secretly visited an illegal abortion clinic where doctors performed a procedure that was supposed to end the pregnancy. Afterward, she returned home expecting to miscarry, believing everything was over. But the days passed and nothing happened. The pregnancy continued. Convinced that the first attempt had failed, she returned to the clinic for another procedure. As medical staff prepared to continue, something unexpected happened. She suddenly felt an overwhelming conviction that God was intervening. Fear filled her heart so powerfully that she could no longer remain at the table. Without allowing the procedure to continue, she quickly got dressed, left the clinic, and never went back. For Fred, hearing this astonishing story at 47 years old answered questions he never even realized he had been asking. Looking back over every painful season of his childhood, every setback, every disappointment, and every unexpected victory, he began to see them through an entirely different lens. What once seemed like a series of difficult life experiences now appeared to be part of a much greater purpose. Rather than viewing his survival as a simple chance, Fred became convinced that God had been protecting him from the very beginning, preserving his life long before anyone else could have imagined the impact he would one day have on millions around the world. Fred confessed that his mother told him she attempted to abort her pregnancy because he was conceived outside of wedlock. But what price did Fred pay for his mother's actions? How did it affect his childhood? And did he allow his circumstances to define him? Let's uncover the details. The painful childhood that shaped Fred's future. Fred Hammond's childhood was shaped by challenges that arrived far earlier than most children ever experience. Although his mother, Mildred, later married Raymond Hammond, the man Fred lovingly knew as his father, that sense of stability did not last long. When Raymond died at just 32 years old, the family's world changed overnight. Mildred was suddenly left to raise 3 young boys by herself, while Fred, who was only about 9 years old, found himself hearing words no child is truly prepared for. Family members began telling him that he was now the man of the house. Even though he was far too young to understand what that really meant, the emotional weight of those expectations stayed with him for years. Not long after Raymond's death, the family moved from Detroit to Inglewood, California, hoping for a fresh start. However, the move was short-lived, and they eventually returned home. The disruption came at a high cost. Fred missed nearly 4 months of school, falling so far behind his classmates that catching up became an uphill battle. For several years, he struggled academically, and some teachers even questioned whether he could keep up with regular classroom learning. At one point, there were discussions about placing him in special education. Looking back, Fred believed the problem was never a lack of intelligence. He had simply fallen behind at a critical stage, and no one truly helped him recover. Despite the hardships around him, Fred refused to let those experiences define his future. He loved sports and spending time outdoors, but music gradually became where he felt most alive. Too shy to sing in front of others, he hid in a closet with his record player, quietly singing along to Jackson 5 songs. Over time, he learned bass, drums, and other instruments, developing the distinctive style that made him one of gospel music's most recognizable voices. Despite experiencing a very challenging childhood, Fred didn't allow those struggles to define who he became. But how determined was he beyond his hardships? What did he build? How influential did it become? And what major challenge did he face along the way? Now, let's uncover how Fred Hammond built a gospel music powerhouse. Walking away after heartbreaking betrayal. By the middle of the 1980s, Fred Hammond had already built a solid reputation as a gifted musician, especially through his work as a bass player for the Winans. It was an opportunity that sharpened his skills, strengthened his discipline, and gave him a first-hand look at excellence in gospel music. But deep inside, Fred believed God was calling him to build something entirely new. Rather than simply joining someone else's vision, he dreamed of creating a group that would introduce a fresh sound while remaining firmly rooted in the gospel message. That dream became reality in 1985 when he founded Commissioned. Fred carefully selected every member, believing each person brought a unique gift that would help shape the group's identity. Inspired by the rich harmonies of the Clark sisters, the smooth vocals of legendary Detroit groups like The Temptations and The Spinners, the soul of Donny Hathaway and Stevie Wonder, and the innovative production styles of Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, Teddy Riley, Babyface, and others, Commissioned created a style unlike anything gospel audiences had heard before. Their music blended traditional gospel with doo-wop, rhythm and blues, funk, and contemporary sounds, helping redefine modern gospel music. The group's influence grew rapidly. Album after album connected with listeners, earning Grammy recognition, Dove Awards, and a devoted following across the country. From the outside, everything appeared to be thriving. But behind closed doors, serious disagreements were beginning to threaten the foundation Fred had worked so hard to build. After spending years leading the group he had personally formed, Fred was stunned during a meeting when some members openly declared that they no longer believed God had called him to lead Commissioned. The statement cut deeply because it questioned not only his leadership, but also his calling. Although the record company fully supported him and even offered him the authority to replace members if necessary, Fred chose a different path. Turning to Scripture for guidance, he concluded that leadership could not succeed where trust and belief had disappeared. Rather than forcing people to follow him, he made the heartbreaking decision to walk away from the very group that had become one of the most influential voices in gospel music. Despite founding Commissioned, Fred eventually walked away from the group after some members questioned whether he was called to lead. But how did he feel after leaving the group he had built? What shocking confession did he make during that difficult season? Now, let's explore the defining moment that transformed his life and ministry. The emotional breakdown. Walking away from Commissioned was far more painful than most people realized. Fred Hammond was not simply leaving a successful gospel group. He was walking away from something he had built with years of sacrifice, vision, and unwavering commitment. The decision left him emotionally drained, and he later admitted that he struggled with depression for several months as he searched for direction. Everything that had once felt certain suddenly seemed unclear, and he found himself asking God what came next. The answer he believed he received was the last thing he expected. God impressed upon his heart to start a choir. Ironically, Fred had never wanted to lead a choir. In fact, he openly admitted that he did not even like choirs and had absolutely no confidence in his ability to direct one. Still, he chose to obey, hoping clarity would come with time. Instead, week after week, rehearsals became increasingly frustrating. He felt unqualified, overwhelmed, and convinced he was failing the people who had chosen to follow him. Eventually, the pressure became too much. One evening, Fred walked into rehearsal fully intending to end the entire choir. Standing before the group with tears in his eyes, he made a confession that stunned everyone in the room. He admitted He had no idea what he was doing and even called himself a fraud. He believed the dream had failed before it had truly begun. But instead of leaving, the choir responded in a way he never expected. They refused to abandon him. One after another, they assured him that they believed in him, even during the moment when he had completely lost confidence in himself. That powerful display of faith changed everything. Fred later realized the difference between leading people who doubted his calling and leading people who fully embraced it. What appeared to be the end of his ministry became the beginning of something even greater. Out of that painful season came Radical for Christ, face-to-face productions, The Inner Court, Pages of Life, Chapters 1 and 2, and a remarkable solo career that reshaped contemporary gospel music. More importantly, Fred became convinced that true worship should never focus on the performer, but should always guide people into a genuine encounter with God. Beyond Fred's confession about struggling at the beginning of his choir journey, was his battle limited to his career? Did he also make a heartfelt confession about his marriage? If so, what did he reveal? And who, if anyone, was to blame? Let's find out. The Marriage, Heartfelt Marriage Confession. As Fred Hammond's influence in gospel music continued to grow, few people realized that behind the applause and success, he was fighting deeply personal battles at home. While audiences celebrated his powerful songs and inspiring ministry, his marriage was facing challenges that could not be solved by fame or musical achievements. Years later, Fred chose to speak openly about that difficult season, offering one of the most honest confessions of his life. Fred married Kim Hammond in 1986, believing they would build a lasting future together. Looking back, however, he admitted that the greatest problems in their marriage were not caused by affairs, public scandals, or dramatic betrayals. Instead, he accepted responsibility for his own shortcomings. He confessed that he entered marriage emotionally unprepared, did not truly understand what it meant to be a good husband, and struggled with managing money responsibly. Growing up without a strong father figure, he had never witnessed a healthy model of marriage or financial partnership, leaving him to learn many important lessons the hard way. The cracks began to appear during the early years of their relationship. At one point, Kim left the family home for 3 weeks, giving Fred time to seriously reflect on his actions and the kind of man he wanted to become. Rather than making temporary changes simply to win her back, he said he experienced a genuine personal transformation that helped strengthen their marriage for a season. Unfortunately, the improvements did not solve every problem. As the years passed, deeper issues resurfaced, and after 18 years together, the couple made the painful decision to divorce in 2004. Even after their marriage ended, Fred remained remarkably careful about how he spoke about Kim in public. He repeatedly emphasized that she had not betrayed Hayimis in the ways many people imagined or accused her of doing. Instead of exposing private family matters or trying to defend his own reputation, he acknowledged that ongoing power struggles within the home had gradually pulled them apart. Above everything else, he remained committed to protecting his family's dignity, preserving mutual respect, and making sure their children always had a stable, loving place to call home, despite the pain of divorce. Fred took responsibility for the divorce between him and his wife, clearing his ex-wife of much of the speculation surrounding their marriage. But what other controversy did he find himself caught up in? Did he admit to the accusations against him, or did he clear his name? Now, let's explore Fred's honest response to the controversy. The rumors and public controversies. As Fred Hammond's popularity continued to grow, so did the attention surrounding every part of his personal life. With greater influence came greater scrutiny, and over the years, his name became linked to several rumors and controversies that sparked conversations throughout the gospel community. Some stories spread quickly across the internet and church circles, while others eventually faded after closer examination. Through it all, Fred found himself facing the difficult reality that public figures are often judged not only by facts, but also by speculation. Among the rumors were claims connecting him to gospel singer Joanne Rosario. Those stories circulated for a period, but gradually lost momentum after Rosario married Corey Condrey in 2008. Separate allegations also surfaced, claiming that Fred had fathered a child with a woman named Erica Warren. However, no verified public evidence ever confirmed those claims, and Fred never publicly discussed the matter in detail. An even larger controversy emerged in 2013 when a Texas woman named Nikki Soni claimed she had attended a private meeting involving Fred Hammond, Bishop Jakes, and former NFL star Deion Sanders. According to her allegations, the discussion centered on financial matters related to Sanders' highly publicized divorce. The accusations quickly attracted media attention because they suggested that Fred had participated in efforts to help conceal assets. Fred firmly denied those allegations, insisting he had never helped anyone hide money or deceive the court. As the story continued unfolding, Nikki Soni later stepped back from significant parts of her original account and publicly expressed respect for both Fred Hammond and Bishop Jakes, leaving the overall picture far less clear than the original headlines had suggested. In more recent years, Fred has also responded to criticism surrounding his to-be stage production, Hood Book, Love and Lust, along with his openness about past struggles involving temptation and sexuality. Rather than trying to present himself as someone who had lived a flawless life, he chose a different approach. He repeatedly emphasized that true spiritual growth begins with honesty, accountability, and learning from past mistakes. For Fred, protecting a perfect public image has never been as important as being truthful about his journey and encouraging others through his own experiences. Fred denied the financial misconduct allegations leveled against him. But did he allow those accusations to affect his career? How successful was he throughout his journey? And what legacy is he leaving behind? Let's find out. The legacy that continues to grow. Although Fred Hammond has become one of the most respected names in gospel music, he has often said that singing is not the greatest gift God gave him. According to Fred, his true calling is helping people discover their potential, grow in their faith, and become the best version of themselves. That passion has shaped nearly every chapter of his career and explains why so many successful artists credit him for believing in them before the rest of the world did. Over the years, Fred has mentored and encouraged countless musicians who later became influential voices in both gospel and mainstream music. Artists such as Marvin Sapp, Dawkins and Dawkins, Israel Houghton, Aaron Lindsay, Christina Bell, Joanne Rosario, Rodney Jerkins, Monica Coates, and many others have all benefited from his guidance, encouragement, or opportunities he helped create. Rather than viewing younger artists as competition, Fred consistently opened doors for new talent, choosing to invest in people instead of protecting his own spotlight. His creativity also reached far beyond music. Inspired by visits to Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis's Flight Time Studios and Prince's legendary Paisley Park, Fred developed a passion for creative ownership and storytelling. That inspiration eventually led him to establish face-to-face productions, where he quietly spent years writing, directing, editing, and producing films. For Fred, filmmaking became another way to share meaningful stories that could encourage and uplift people. His influence has continued to receive well-deserved recognition. In 2021, Commissioned, the groundbreaking group he founded, was inducted into the Dove Award Gospel Music Hall of Fame, honoring the lasting impact they made on contemporary gospel music. 3 years later, Fred reunited with longtime commissioned members Keith Staton and Marcus Cole for Time Capsule, giving longtime fans a heartfelt reminder of the group's enduring legacy. Even while facing painful personal moments, including his daughter Brianne's public revelation that she had survived sexual assault, Fred continued creating music and developing projects centered on hope and healing. One of his most meaningful recent works, The Choir, explores grief, trauma, addiction, faith, and mental health within the church. Today, Fred lives in Cedar Hill, Texas, and remains unmarried, but his passion for ministry remains as strong as ever. With more than 8 million albums sold, 1 Grammy Award, 9 Dove Awards from 34 nominations, and 9 Stellar Awards from 58 nominations, his legacy extends far beyond impressive achievements. His journey continues to remind people that true greatness is not built on living a perfect life, but on having the courage to be honest, to keep growing, and to help others rise along the way. So, what do you think about Fred Hammond's confession? Will he respect him more for his honesty? We would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe.